Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. The poet William Blake once wrote that great things are done when men and mountains meet. And the words we just read from the Torah this morning cannot illustrate this point better. The Bible records many instances where mountains play a significant role. The grounding of Noah's Ark was on a mountain. The testing of Abraham through the binding of his son Isaac took place atop a mountain. The judge Deborah, met the enemy of the Israelites from sitting atop a mountain. And then there are the words we just read, the words which opened our book of Leviticus portion. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe b'har Sinai lemor. And the Lord spoke to Moses from the mountain of Sinai. Now imagine what a marvelous, magnificent scene this must have been. Our ancestors had just left Egypt. They were walking on foot through the Sinai desert, an environment even more hostile than July in Houston. They were hungry and thirsty and getting crankier by the day, but at least they were walking on flat ground. And suddenly, standing before them is the face of a mountain, Sinai. And like the children's song, they must have been saying to themselves, well, we can't go over it, can't go under it. I guess we'll try to go around it or stay stuck here forever. From time immemorial, mountains have constituted a challenge to us humans. Mountains have always represented obstacles to be overcome. At times, it seems as if we are up against insuperable mountains that loom on the horizon of our lives. But these mountains are meant to be climbed and overcome. And this morning, I want to suggest at least 3 ways in which this is so very true. We face, each and every one of us, I suspect, days in which our aches and pains and hurts make our lives seem like an uphill climb. Some of our hurts are small, but they're tenacious, while other hurts are forever or even life-threatening. Some of our hurts can be diminished with a pill or a shot, but others just won't go away. And just getting up, just getting dressed, getting out the door, sometimes takes some of us more effort than sometimes it's worth. Have you ever felt like that? I don't expect anyone to remember, but a number of years ago, when I was on a Federation mission to Israel, I slipped on a wet surface in Tel Aviv and I broke my ankle on our first day there. And I still remember how many years later, how upset and disappointed and aggravated I was when it happened in Israel, of all places. But nothing could have prepared me for what it would be like limping around with one cast and then another, and finally I was given this stupid boot. And all the while, my foot still hurt. And I was reminded of that episode a few weeks ago when a member of our congregation who broke her foot last year returned the padded boot that I had loaned her and many others over the years. It brought back many unpleasant memories, to say the least. During my own recovery, I remember trying to keep my little injury in perspective. After all, I told myself, it could have been much worse. And that's true for most of the aches and pains with which we live. But even a mild headache is a headache. And it's hard to concentrate and feel fully functioning if any part of our body is not working properly. If you are sitting here with a backache or a neck ache or a toothache, you know that it still hurts, no matter how minor it might be in the grand scheme of world and a society. And sometimes it feels like an uphill climb just getting up in the morning and out of the house. Often it seems like it would just be so much easier just to fall into that recliner or not even get out of bed. But we can't avoid the climb if we want to live. How did one writer put it? God gave me hills to climb and strength for climbing. When we come to those mountains in our lives, when the incline seems too great, when the hurt seems too painful, when the ache just won't go away no matter how many pills and drugs you take, That's when we have to look at that mountain and realize that, like all mountains, it was put there to be overcome. And we can, and we must, and we will. Walking with a cast or a walker or an ever-present ache can be hard. And I remember complaining to my doctor about it, and he told me, look, David, you got to make a decision. Do you want to drag your ankle, or do you want your ankle to drag you? It's a wonderful article I read in the New York Times in which Kirk Douglas described how he gave up smoking. He said he learned from his dad, who quit cold turkey, by keeping a cigarette in his pocket. And whenever he had the urge to smoke, he would pull out that cigarette and he would say to it, who's stronger, you or me? Who's stronger, my back or me? Who's stronger, my neck or me? My ankle or me? My cancer or me? My heart or me? That's the choice so many of us have to make each day, short term, long term. But when we take charge, we can confront those mountains standing in our way and prevail. There's a second challenge that so many of us face, facing the loss of a loved one, a spouse or a parent, or the worst, a child. More than one of you has told me it's like being in a valley, a deep valley filled with pain, and the mountain towers above you, impassable, unapproachable. A man in our congregation spoke for many of you when he told me what it feels like now that his wife is gone. Rabbi, I feel like I'm stuck in place, like there's a wall in front of me, a glass wall, and I can see through it to where I want to be, but I can't get past it. He feels, it seems to me, like he's walking in the desert, and now he's in the presence of a mountain that he can't go under, can't go over, and can't go around. And he feels stuck before this obstacle to his future well-being, this challenge to his mental health. One of the most moving passages in the whole of the Bible is the well-known 23rd Psalm. The psalmist tells us of his deep faith that Gam ki alech begetz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no harm, for you are with me. The loss of a beloved one is like entering a deep valley with huge mountains at both ends, cut off from the bright sunlight, a shadowy, gloomy place from which there may seem to be no place to escape. But the psalmist wisely used an important word to describe this experience. Though I walk through the valley, I will fear no harm. Not though I am stuck in the valley, but rather the certainty that I will walk through the valley. And yes, emerge with the strength to climb out. Because God gave me hills to climb, yes, but also strength for climbing. For a valley is open on both sides, and having entered it, we are not to make it our permanent dwelling place. Rather, after we have lingered there for a while, we are to walk through it and out into the bright sunshine of our life. The climb will be uphill, but we will make it. How? By doing that which we always do when we look at a mountain, by looking above it and beyond it, heavenward. By finding ways to transform our own hurts and pains into opportunities to relieve the hurts and pains of others. It's a proven fact that we hurt less when we are helping others with their hurts, their losses, and their worries. It won't be easy, but we will make it. And finally, this morning, there are those among us who always enjoyed climbing mountains and were successful at it. Then suddenly we found ourselves sliding down those mountains all too quickly, and we were left with questions and frustration and confusion. You have a wonderful job, pays good, a comfortable home. Everything is going your way. Then the boss pulls you into her office and says, "You've been great, but our business isn't what it used to be, and we're going to have to let some wonderful people go, and I'm afraid you're one of them." Now at 50 or 60, you find yourself with a mountain of obligations before you, and for the first time in your life, you're scared and disoriented. A member of Beth Yeshurun once told me, "I was the person responsible for layoffs in my company. I thought my job was the only safe one there. Then they laid me off. Talk about a surprise." Or you wake up one morning and discover your spouse has packed up and moved on, and the note says, "I have new dreams to fill," and you're not in them. Now you find your house feels so empty, and you have so much standing before you, and no one with whom to share them. Or perhaps you had a beautiful home that was building in equity, never flooded in 40 years. Now it's flooded twice, and you wonder about not just your home, but you wonder about your financial future and security. When we come across such mountains that we've been climbing with such ease, and now we find ourselves sliding down them slowly but surely, how do we climb back? One way is prayer. One of our members described how much he was hurting after being out of work for several months, and when I suggested that he come to the synagogue and together we pray, he shot back at me, "Prayer? Rabbi, what am I going to pray for? That God should send me a job? That God should make sure I get a good salary? That God should take the water damage out of my home? Prayer's not going to get me a good job or a cleaned up house." And I told him, "You're right. Praying for a good job may not do anything, but it's not for a new job that you should be praying, but for the strength to keep on going when you're feeling so down, to keep you from becoming so despondent that you feel like throwing in the towel. That's why we pray in shul and don't pray alone, so that when you come to the synagogue with a minyan, with a quorum of other people, you can look around and see these people who are feeling the same kinds of aches and pains and hurts and anxieties that you are feeling. And when you see these people, you become strengthened because you realize that you aren't being singled out for tsuris. That God hasn't come to push you to the breaking point, but to the contrary, God is there to lift your spirit in the presence of others who are hurting too. And you know what else you will see? You'll see people that used to feel just like you, but are whole again. They fell off the mountain and now they've climbed back up. And when you see them and speak with them and pray with them, you'll realize that yes, there is a way out of this valley, and yes, you will one day walk that road up the mountain and around it, like the Israelites did so long ago. You may feel emotionally hungry and afraid and uncertain about your future. They stood before a mountain 3,000 years ago with fire and lightning all around them, and the pronouncements from a God in heaven whose voice left them panicked and petrified. But in those words, they also found an answer to their fears, for the Torah came to give this frightened people a mission and a purpose and the strength to move forward. The same strength that has enabled our people to climb every mountain and to make it to the other side whole, healthy, and secure. Mountains may be difficult for people to traverse, but not for mountain goats. In bold defiance of gravity, mountain goats demonstrate incredible stability in the most difficult of terrains. They leap sure-footedly from mountain ledge to mountain ledge, scampering around steep, rugged mountainsides with the utmost confidence. And just as God makes provision in the animal world for creatures to stand with stability in the most difficult of terrain, I think Judaism teaches that God will surely make provision for us, his children, to stand in the most difficult of spiritual and emotional circumstances. He can and he will stabilize us in the midst of overwhelming difficulty. Bahar Sinai, from the foot of Sinai, our ancestors went forward with a new resolve. They still felt their aches and losses and uncertainties, but with a determination born of faith in God and the power of the human spirit to conquer every impediment in their way, this same people did make it somehow to the promised land. May our journey through life be filled with the same success, the same courage, the same joy, the same blessing. Shabbat Shalom.